Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. Today is just going to be a little chat video while I do my makeup, and I'm going to be talking about essentially what's going on lately and some things I'm going to be doing soon, so I hope you enjoy. So I'm going to be doing a chat video like this and then a makeup review every other week for the time being until I get through reviewing the couple palettes that I got recently, because I just got like a mystery box from ColourPop with a few different ones. So I'm just going to go through and talk about some of those here soon. And then my blush palette actually broke, so I'm just going to be using the blush out of the My Little Pony palette for the time being. I thought about buying a new one, but it takes so long to go through blushes that I figured I might as well just at least use more of this one first. I might actually be doing something a little bit different. So here on the 1st, we're going to be getting ready to go to a LARP event. We do a couple of those every year, mostly a game called Bella Garth. And it's a lot of fun, but it's going to be my first time going since my MS diagnosis, second time going with a flare-up in general, but my first time going where I actually understand what's going on. So I think I might just post something kind of talking about, things I do to make that process easier, and what going to an event like that with a chronic illness can kind of look like. Because, especially with Bella Garth, it is a LARP that is very focused on, the fighting and the sport side of things. And so it can be kind of strange to go to if you have, especially if you newly have, some kind of chronic illness or disability. I remember, not the flare-up I'm in right now, but the one right before that actually started at, ironically enough, the same event we're getting ready to go to, an event called Oktoberfest, back in 2019, right before COVID. At that time, the event was a little bit further of a drive from us, and I remember I didn't know that it was MS. It wasn't the first time I'd had a flare-up, but I hadn't yet made the connection that they were connected and that they were the same thing. So I remember thinking that I was potentially just getting really, really sick. And while COVID wasn't a concern in the US yet, I used way too much of this eyeshadow primer, it was a thing that was kind of being discussed here and there. And a member of my family worked with a company where things got sent over from China fairly regularly, and we weren't sure if potentially there was some kind of contamination of some kind on something she'd received and that she'd passed an illness along to me. All we knew is that I was not doing well. But it was over an 11-hour drive to the event, and we thought about just going back early, but I pretty adamantly told my husband that I really didn't want to do that if we could help it. Make sure this is recording. I got paranoid for a second. Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure it was recording. I got paranoid that I'd accidentally hit the stop button earlier. So I ended up deciding to just more or less suffer through with the flare-up while we were at this event. It was not a fun time, but we made the best of it, and I must be honest, I don't really remember the event. That's kind of one of the things with my flare-ups, is I don't really tend to remember much of what happened during them when it's over. They kind of more or less just disappear somewhere inside of my brain, never to be seen or heard from again. So I do my best to avoid scheduling anything too important going on once I realize I'm having a flare-up. But this is my, I believe, 4th one. I had my first one back when I was about 15, and I never forget that one because I had my MRI on one of the times that they claimed the world was about to end. It was my first ever MRI. Ever since then, I'd had what I thought were migraines. Pretty bad ones. I'd have them at least 3 days a week most of the time. That's not what I wanted to do. I'd have the migraines at least 3 days a week after that first flare-up. But that was more or less all I got from that one, was some migraines. Occasionally my chest would get kind of tight and sore, but at the time they more or less wrote it off as being anxiety. Which never made sense to me because I wasn't and I'm still really not a very anxious person. I'm very much the kind of person who is very calm in a situation, is kind of known for being hard to stress out. So the idea that they thought it was anxiety never quite made sense to me, but once doctors make their mind up about something, good luck changing it. And I seemed more or less fine after that, so nobody really thought much of it. I didn't think much of it. And I kind of went back to going about my normal life for a while. Then, when I was 18 or so, I had my next flare-up, and that one was really bad. That one, we were at a water park when it started, and I was walking back to our hotel room from playing in the pool, and I literally just got sick and started like getting violently ill in the middle of the hallway. And I'm pretty sure it was because I was in one of those outdoor hot tubs. And with MS, you can become pretty heat sensitive. So I think I just accidentally kind of cooked myself a little bit. But obviously I have no way of knowing for sure what was going on at that time now. And then that's the one that I feel like left me with probably the most symptoms. After that, my migraines got significantly worse. Again, migraines in quotes. I started having them 5-6 days a week. I was having them more often than I wasn't. Like, it was almost every day. But again, aside from the migraines and some worsening chest and rib pain, you know, at a certain point, the symptoms just seemed to more or less go away. And when that happened, nobody seemed to care what was going on. I assumed that it was just some kind of weird fluke illness and did my best to move on. Then, in, like I said, 2019, pre-pandemic, October of 2019, I don't know if the virus was elsewhere in the world, but it hadn't hit the US yet. I got my second most recent flare-up, and that was the one where I felt like I knew something was wrong. So it's 2019, it's still pre-pandemic, so getting into doctors isn't a horrible experience to try and do yet. And I know something is wrong, and I'm telling everyone, I'm like, these incidences are connected. This is not the first time I've had, not the exact same symptoms, but similar enough that you're not telling me it's unrelated. You're not telling me that there's nothing going on here. I was having a lot of pain walking and moving around. It wasn't quite as bad as the one I had when I was 18, but it was a close second, and there were aspects of it that you could argue were worse. And I just remember feeling awful all of the time. And of course, none of the doctors you go to think anything's wrong. They do, you know, one blood test, one CT scan, don't see the result they expect to see, and just kind of go, then you must be fine. I remember they tried to tell me that all that was wrong was I had a B12 deficiency. And I said every time, I'm like, it's gotta be more than that. I understand the B12 is low, but that doesn't explain everything. I mean, I was having constant pain in my feet and legs. I was tired all the time. And a new symptom that has stuck with me started around that time, which was that I developed an auditory processing disorder. And as I said, I haven't really... That's stuck with me ever since, the auditory processing disorder. The other thing I got that stuck with me, and I think I did have some degree of this before that flare-up, but it definitely increased in potency, is the pain sensors in my body do not work very well. So I burned my finger the other day, for example. I don't know if you can see that, but I didn't feel when I burned it. The worst example was when I received a facial from somebody who was applying to be an esthetician at a place where I worked, to see if essentially she knew what she was doing. And I got chemical burns and didn't feel it. Because essentially, a lot of my nerves operate on the assumption that whatever I think I should feel must be what's going on. So, like, if I'm relaxed, then whatever's happening can't hurt because I'm relaxed. And so my brain doesn't get those pain signals. I have a tattoo, and when I got that tattoo, I literally slept through it, and it was the best nap I ever had in my life because I thought it was just such a relaxing experience. But that was the most extreme example, and that started after the last flare-up. Since I am medicated now, this flare-up doesn't seem to be as bad. Obviously, filming only happens on days where it's good days, so you don't necessarily realize, even with a, moderate one like this, kind of what every day necessarily looks like, but I feel like I'm hanging in there better than I usually do, and that's kind of the best you can hope for. This one was already well underway before I started to get medicated or anything, so I don't necessarily know how much it would have helped if I'd been on that stuff before it started. But we have some ideas, and my doctor gave some recommendations, because originally we just weren't going to go to the LARP event this year at all. We were just going to stay home. And to be honest, there's technically still a chance we might. Until I'm actually there, who knows if we end up changing our mind. But I hate to not go at all because of something that, while the flare-up will eventually end, it's anybody's guess how much of it will stick with me. And I don't want to stop doing this if I don't absolutely have to. You know what I mean? Like, I love going to events. I love the community we've built there. And I don't want to lose that just because I have this thing going on that makes me not feel best. So we've looked into some things I can do and that we can do at camp to make things easier while I'm there, and we're just going to give it a shot and see how it goes. I might film some kind of vlogs and things like that while I'm there, just so that I can kind of show off, what worked for me, and maybe it would work for someone else. Next week I'm going to be reviewing one of the palettes I got in my mystery box from ColourPop. So I got Mint 2B, Miss Bliss, and Going Cocoa Nuts. They aren't going to be first reactions because I did want to play around with them a little bit just to make sure I knew how the colors worked and what kind of worked well on my skin tone before I did the review. But if you have a preference on which of these you'd like to see first, please go ahead and leave it in the comments, and I will do that one first. If I don't hear anything, I'm probably going to go Mint 2B, Miss Bliss, and then Going Cocoa Nuts at the end. But I am absolutely open to switching those around or doing them in any order y'all would like. But other than that, I think that's about all I have to say. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see y'all next week. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and, if you've gone to like a LARP event or anything like that, and you have something that you've needed accommodations for, go ahead and why don't you let me know what you did in the comments below. Maybe we can all help each other out and figure out things that can work for us. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Be cute.